Wow. Wow, my chair's louder than normally now. Wait a second. Let me move myself. Hello, little stinky fishy. But before I'm going to talk with you, I have to prepare a couple of things. No air, I have no air today. Because it's so freaking hot here. And it's not even like the middle of the day. I don't know what's going to happen later. It's going to be so terrible. I think I'm going to literally just die. What is this? Why should I turn this on? This makes no sense. Okay. First? No, you cannot be first. Wait a second. When it's a waiting room, it's not possible. I already told that to the manager. He cannot be there before the stream even started. That's cheating. I think, but hello, Altosk. I hope you had a great day, and if not, I hope it's getting so much better soon. We are a little bit earlier than usual today, and yeah. Thank you. Now you are the first one. Now you're the first one who's here. Are you? Yeah, I know the first one. Okay. Today, my little stinkies, we are going to react to one of my favorite animal, biological, geographical nature channels. It's nothing of that, but wait, let me turn on the fan. It's way too hot. That's not going to help. This is definitely not going to help. It's terrible. What? Why? Oh, oops! I died for a second. But yeah, for those little stinkies who don't know who TierZoos is. TierZoos is actually a little channel, not a little channel, I think he has literally almost 4 million subs. I think there's no one on this planet who is going to tell me that TierZoos is not a thing they know. It's like a channel where he like gamifies nature. Yeah, he's gamifying nature like it's who the people who don't know like the word gamify, it's like making a game of something that's usually not a game. Like to make something more playful and stuff like that. And he goes really into that RPG feeling and into the multiplayer aspect of like the meta of different animals in this world. Yeah. And I saw that I was not like I didn't saw like the fish tier list, and I was wondering like, oh wait, before I watch it myself, let's just watch a couple of them together in this little video, because I realized I did too much. You know, those Mondays we are using, they're normally like, we currently have the mosquito meter, my least favorite meter. I hate them. I hate the mosquito meter. I really hate them. But I never saw one, so I'm pretty fine here. And I realized over like the couple of days that we spent on Mondays on our Just Talking streams, we talked about too much like serious stuff and I don't know all the other things, but we can have a little bit of fun too, I think. So let's just react to something that I actually like. Okay, but let me switch something around here. Oops. I have to prepare a couple of things. It's going to really take a little bit of time because I have to capture my window, like my my browser window, and I don't want you guys to see my things. They're a little bit private. Okay, let's turn this off. No display capture, you want a window capture. Where is it? Oh, and it's possible that you can maybe hear like my fan in the background. I'm sorry, I can do nothing about it. It's just too too freaking hot. Okay, now this one. It works. Okay, let me cut off a couple of things that we don't need actually. We don't need this one. And we don't need this one. Okay. Did you guys already like saw a little TierZoos video? Most of them are pretty old. I saw like on this channel, I was looking a little bit at it and I realized like, what the heck, I was watching those videos like a while ago. Really a while ago. Okay, let's get this one. Let's make it a little bit brighter. Okay, actually, looks good. Looks good. Doesn't look like it docks me in any way. Would it? I'm scared. Video sources, window capture. Let's cut off a little bit from this side too. We can enlarge it a little bit later. So, wow. Wait a second. We are almost finished. Is it ready? It looks ready. Ooh, wow. Okay, my stinky fishies. It's going to be very, how you call it? Silent right now. But this is the TierZoos channel. I linked it in the description too. Here are his little funny videos. And you can basically almost like see in his little thumbnails that it's going to be wonderful. I hate the noise in my background. There's like someone drilling right now, but okay, here, this one I wanted to look. It's the fish tier list. And we have to adjust a little bit of the like sound first, so let's click on random this thingy. Later we can get the frog tier list, I don't know. I just want to show it. And if you guys have any other videos you want to submit, you can always do that. Please, nothing sus, please, nothing stupid. Just something like semi-stupid. If there's something you want me to react to, you can always send it in like the submission channel. Oh no, we don't have one. What the heck? I need one on Discord, what the heck? I need something like this because I want to do it a little bit more often. Hermit crabs. Okay. Everything after on each other, okay? Let's start with the fish tier list. Whoa! That was freaking loud. Okay. Let's enlarge it. And I hope you can see everything. It's a little bit too big. Let's make it a little bit bigger, to be honest. I cut off a lot of things. What? Is this the wrong button? This looks like the wrong button. Wait, I'm moving everything around. That's why I cannot cut it. What the heck? I'm stupid. I have to only select this one. No. Okay. Sorry, scuff in the beginning. Important. I'm the favorite scuff tuber of this universe. Okay, this looks good, to be honest. This drill in my background, I'm going to freaking destroy it for real. It's so loud. Let me close the windows. Maybe they're going to be a little bit quieter. Wow. You would not believe me. It did exactly nothing. The drill people are literally in my house. They're living in my house. Okay, let's try to... Okay. Let's do the beginning. I hope it's loud enough. I'm going to do it a little bit louder. Now there are even people outside. freaking like screaming around? What is wrong with them? Oh no, this is bad. Okay, let's just watch it. Wow. Oh, this is really, really loud. For me at least.
This video was made in partnership with CuriosityStream. Fish are one of the most diverse factions in the entire game. They are extremely popular among both casual and competitive players, and make up the vast majority of the aquatic player base. And with so many different potential fish builds to choose from, it can be difficult to know which builds are actually competitively viable in the current meta. So today, we're going to go through the tier list of fish. This will by no means be a comprehensive tier list. I mean, there are more than 3,000 variants of the catfish build alone.
What? For some awesome comedy sketches, I could recommend Key and P. The problem is I'm very bad at like comedy sketches. I don't understand comedy so much. I'm very stupid. So it's very hard for me to understand things like that. But 3,000 different catfish species, what? They're probably not very, different from each other. Is there a Suckersambaspis build? I wonder, I really wonder. Is that a good old Suckersambaspis? I don't know, really. But catfish are scary. Catfish are one of the scariest things. They're living here in Germany too. So,
Still, by highlighting the standout builds in both high and low tiers, hopefully I can give you a good understanding of where the fish faction fits into the current meta. And if there's a fish I didn't include, hopefully by seeing my logic in this video, you'll be able to evaluate that fish build yourself. Oh, also, quick disclaimer, since I've already made a shark tier list...
Wait, what? You did one? Okay, we're going to watch it later.
Video. But before we dive into the tier list, first I want to give you an overview of the abilities commonly found in the fish faction, as well as some background on the history of the fish build. So the basic fish build doesn't have much in terms of unique perks or abilities, which is actually great as it means that each player has a lot of room for customization. The basic fish build is most famous for its use of the fin and gill abilities, both of which offer huge advantages in water while predictably being entirely useless on land.
High stamina
During the
regeneration.
Devonian expansion, long before the vertebrate faction had unlocked terrestrial builds, fish were the top tier build in the game, having a crushing matchup against the top arthropods, their main competitors. In today's meta though, fish have to compete with a lot more than just arthropods, and typically place below the top marine builds like cetaceans and cephalopods. And with the nerfs to the Plagiderm armor ability that fish used to have access to, fish had...
Yeah, back in the days I heard like fish had like armor, like, from the insects and stuff like that, like the exoskeleton, but not like the exoskeleton, they had just bones on the outside of their body. That's crazy. Now fish are soft and stupid.
Had to get creative with their game strategies in order to survive the current meta. Now let's get into the tier list to see which strategies and abilities are worth speccing into if you're a fish player. Seahorses are an extremely strange build with the lowest mobility
seahorses
stat of any
are
fish in the game. This mobility stat is due entirely to their strange choice to spec into the prehensile tail ability at the cost of all but one of their fins.
Seahorses
Now,
are
don't get me wrong,
useless.
the prehensile tail ability can be extremely useful, especially for arboreal builds that use them to tether themselves to trees while keeping their hands and legs free for foraging. For a marine build though, I think there are better choices available. All the prehensile tail does is allow the seahorse to anchor itself to plants and rocks, preventing itself from getting tossed around by the current, which again it wouldn't need to do if it didn't lack fins. Now, they do have pretty solid armor, which can make them difficult to actually take out, but their extreme lack of mobility means the seahorse cannot dodge attacks. This leads them to getting smacked around by any player who feels like it, even ones without any special combat perks. And with their best matchup being against plankton, to me there's no way the seahorse places any higher than F tier.
The seahorse is
Also
useless.
in F tier we have the ocean sunfish. This
Wait. But, sorry I'm stopping so much, but is the seahorse not very wacky? Do they have not like a pouch and the male like carry the babies around? I don't know how they're even existing in those days. They're looking pretty useless. But he's right, yeah. I don't even know if they have high armor. They look squishy. They look so squishy. Some seahorses, but look very fancy to be honest. The sunfish. It's it's one of my favorite fish. It looks so stupid, but I think it got so many parasites. It's literally so useless. Okay, let's look what he's going to say.
Probably isn't too shocking given that the sunfish is famously bad at defending itself. But for those unaware, the ocean sunfish has the highest HP stat of any fish in the game and relies on its giant size for protection. Similar to the seahorse, the sunfish's other stats are all extremely low, and because of this, the sunfish gets bullied hard by many of the common marine threats, both large and small. They get torn to bits and tossed around particularly badly by the mammalian player base. Sea lions and orcas in particular love flexing their superiority over the largest fish build in the game. But the sunfish has another huge weakness: parasites.
I knew it, I knew it.
The sunfish has soft, mucus-coated skin instead of the scales traditionally used by fish players. This makes the sunfish more vulnerable to parasites, which unfortunately means that even the best sunfish mains have to play while suffering from a wide variety of debuffs from parasite infestations. The sunfish players often solicit the help of support mains like the wrasse and shrimp to help cleanse themselves, and may even sit at the water's surface to give bird mains the chance to attack the parasites. The gigantism strategy is usually a pretty reliable strategy for avoiding attacks. Elephants, whales, hippos, and rhinos are generally safe from attacks once they reach their max size. However, I think in order to make the strategy work, you need to actually be able to strike back to discourage repeated attacks. Otherwise, you're kinda just a damage sponge and will have your HP slowly whittled down, as we often see happen to the sunfish mains. So because of all these vulnerabilities and over-reliance on support players for help, I have to place the ocean sunfish in F tier.
Understandable. The ocean sunfish is literally useless too. He literally just floats around like a ginormous disc. But I love him. I didn't knew that. I think the name of them are Mola too. And I didn't knew that they had no scales, to be honest. I thought they were just very, very small. But they're just skin. That's kind of disgusting. Did you ever saw like a fish with skin? I think there are a lot, but I was not thinking about it. It's kind of weird. Flying fish. I do not understand flying fish myself. Who the heck this is like a spore creature. I don't understand why people made flying fish. Okay, people don't make them, but why does this thing exist?
The flying fish is a build with an extremely unique playstyle centered around maximizing mobility. By putting a huge amount of evolution points into their fin trait and mobility stat, they've actually gained the ability to glide through the air for surprisingly long distances. This is useful as an escape option when being attacked by a larger fish player. However, as unique a move as this is, I actually think this is a pretty poor strategy overall. Being airborne might put you out of range of an attack from another fish, but it's by no means a safe position, and in many cases is actually seriously disadvantageous. Without any way to dodge attacks midair, flying fish are extremely vulnerable to bird attacks, which kinda nullifies the benefit of escaping an aquatic pursuer. And in addition, with no way to change direction midair, it's actually not that difficult.
To be honest, that sounds like a thing that would happen to me, you know? I would build like a flying fish. I would fly out of the air. Some birds would just bully me after I got all my points into mobility. That sounds like a thing that I would do. Hello, Banfish. Yeah, we're reacting to TierZoos fish tier list. Yeah, welcome. I hope you had a great day, and if not, I hope it's getting so much better soon. We are looking at the flying fish right now. The flying fish was useless. I think he's useless. But I saw so many videos of like the flying fish going far distances, really far distances. So, wow, scary dude.
Wow. Said fish player to just intercept the flying fish's landing. So overall, not that useful of an ability, tacked onto an otherwise unremarkable build.
Salmon!
Also in D tier we have the salmon family, which includes fish builds like the trout and the char. This build actually has some pretty impressive stats, with high mobility being pretty much required in order to withstand the constant rushing flow of the rivers that they use as their respawn points. Similar to the flying fish, this playstyle is also highly vulnerable to disruption from non-aquatic players.
No!
As impressive as it is that salmon and trout mains are able to make these insane jumps, the sad truth is that the thing that they're most well known for is being an easy source of XP for carnivore players. Now, this jumping ability is also useful for attacking flying builds midair, but the salmon's power stat isn't quite enough to be able to take down anything that isn't far below their weight class.
Wait, the salmon is useless? I thought the salmon was like, you know, it cannot die, like a zombie fish. I want to reincarnate into this guy. The flying fish? I don't know. The flying fish sounds sad. Catfish. I don't know. The catfish is kinda OP. It's so OP. Has like unlimited growth. Catfish are so scary. They are so scary.
At the bottom of C tier, we have the catfish, one of the tankier builds on this list with a bulky yet versatile stat spread. A lot of players undervalue the catfish and see it as low tier trash due to it being a bottom feeder, not realizing that they've actually got a few decent unique abilities, most important of which is their venom. Rather than speccing their fin appendages to do things like flying or flexing, the catfish will spec into fins that have barbs on them, which can deliver a venomous sting. While their venom usually isn't able to deal lethal damage, it's still a decent defensive ability. It does have its weaknesses though, particularly to long, disjointed hitboxes, such as the spear-like beaks of some bird builds. Nonetheless, the catfish is still a reliable and easy to play build, being omnivorous and able to gain plenty of XP simply by digging through the mud for scraps.
Wait, what? The catfish is poisonous? I was fighting against catfish in my past. I never got poisoned. I never knew this. What the heck? Maybe it was like a world patch at the moment, like a meta patch. The catfish was way too weak, so they added like poison damage to him. I played like on the old servers. No, but what the heck? I really never knew this. It's crazy. Archerfish, I know this one. I think this one is possible. It can spit water. It like bugs and stuff like that. Yeah, I actually saw them in real life too.
Also in C tier we have the Archerfish, the only fish build with the ability to use a ranged attack. This projectile deals essentially 0 damage, but it's by no means useless. This projectile has high knockback, making it excellent for pushing players into vulnerable positions. A waterlogged insect is one of the easiest targets in the game, and being able to force that type of interaction is an extremely powerful ability. This ability does have its limitations though. As is the case with most projectiles, this attack is unusable in the water, meaning that the Archerfish doesn't really have any good moves for PvP against other aquatic players. I think the biggest weakness of this playstyle though is the position that you're forced into in order to make use of your projectile weapon. Being near the surface of the water leaves you vulnerable to both attacks from below and above, and with no defense against either, the Archerfish is a high-risk, decent reward build.
Yep, makes it the best. I hate basses. They are so scary.
But lack any truly overpowered abilities. First is the...
You know, the bass is just when you take a fish, give him a ginormous mouth and make him very gluttonous. It's a bass. It's just a very angry fish all the time. I hate this guy.
Bass, the poster child for the phrase big fish in a small pond. With solid stats and the ability to grow larger than most other freshwater lake fish, the bass can easily dominate their local scene, even to the point of depleting the area of resources by gobbling them all up. Their generalist nature and large jaws mean they can prey upon just about anything from smaller fish to crustaceans to even builds like frogs and alligators. While there's not that much...
What? What? A bass can eat a small alligator? Huh? Did I miss something? It's not a grouper, it's a bass. What? What the heck? Basses look so weird to me. What? They can eat small alligators? I think he talked about like small ones. Big ones would not make any sense, so... What the heck?
Much that's flashy or unique about this strategy, there's no denying that the bass is a consistent threat in the pond meta, and I consider them the gatekeepers of the higher tiers. Also in B tier, we have the fish faction's premier support class, the Cleaner Ross. The Cleaner Ross specializes in cleansing larger fish players of parasites, providing an extremely useful service in the form of removing debuffs from any fish player in need, similar to the Oxpecker on land. Parasites are a major threat to fish players, so it's no surprise that oftentimes even top-tier builds like Sharks will add Cleaner Ross players to their party. Ross do have to rely on their reputation to protect them though, and while betrayals during cleansing sessions are rare, swimming into a mouthful of dagger-like teeth is not without risk.
I want to be something like them. It's the only support class that we saw now. I want to clean some other fish. Looks tasty, to be honest. Just imagine cleaning fish with your mouth. Ew.
Alright, now we're in A tier, and this is where things start to get a bit overpowered. First, we have the Pickerel Guild, which includes the pike and muskellunge, the most fearsome freshwater fish in the game.
Wait!
These vicious fish builds are highly aggressive and attack anything in or around their domain.
Is this
From
not
fish to birds
Ellie?
to mammals and even humans.
And Kaitos Kid?
Their powerful jaws sport.
Wait! This is a tigerfish! I know it! I saw it! This is a tigerfish! Wait!
Sharp crocodile-esque teeth, which deal serious damage and grip their target, preventing their escape.
Those are you
But it's not just
guys!
about power with these fish. Their slender body and camouflage allow them to easily hide in cover, waiting for the perfect ambush opportunity. And unlike trout, when these fish jump, it's not just to clear an obstacle, they jump to attack. Their only weakness is a slow growth rate and long respawn timer, but even at low levels, these fish are adept hunters. While not part of the Pickerel Guild, I also include the Barracuda in this same rating, as they have a very similar playstyle. Giant size is not a requirement to be a high tier predator though, as exemplified by the next build on this list, the Piranha.
Oh.
Piranhas
Piranha.
are one of the best, if not the best, example of how with the right combination of special abilities and team strategies, size genuinely doesn't matter. Their special ability, Feeding Frenzy, boosts Piranha Shoal DPS to one of the highest in the game, able to absolutely melt through the HP of even the tankiest targets. In contrast to the salmon and trout, because of their favorable matchup against larger players, piranhas are the only fish build on
No,
this
not the
list
capybara!
that I think actually make great use of its positional advantage in rivers, as many mammals and birdmates will be forced to cross your territory over the course of their playthrough and fall victim to your frenzy attacks. Their main weakness is a lack of defensive capability.
Whoa, this
meaning that
piranha
they can
looks
still be
chunky.
easily one-shot by other predator players. The next build on this tier list does not share this weakness.
Whoa, lionfish! Piranhas are scary. They are so scary. So many people say like they are overrated, like, but when I fall like in a tank of full of piranhas, they're not going to eat me, of course, but maybe. And that would hurt a lot. Lionfish, I was actually playing with lionfish when I was a little bit smaller, because I didn't knew that they were like poisonous. Yeah. I never touched them because, as you can see, I'm still alive. But I was literally playing with them in the water in Asia land. No, not in Asia land, in Egypt when I was a little bit smaller. I didn't knew that. They were looking so colorful, you know. As a kid, I was like, oh, look at that, cool looking fish. But I never touched the fish because I was way too scared that they're going to bite me. But this one would have not bitten me, bitten me. It wouldn't have just killed me.
The lionfish is one of the most well-defended fish builds in the game, relying on a huge arsenal of venomous spines to deal serious damage to attackers, similar to the porcupine build on land. Because of this, the lionfish is an infamously unpleasant target to attack, and most predator players tend to either ignore or actively avoid them. While their other stats are quite low, this certainly hasn't stopped them from rising to dominance in their home server of
Yeah, I know this.
Lionfish are also generalists who gobble up anything that their low mobility stat allows them to catch, which can quickly deplete a server of its resources. And because of their quick respawn
They're
rate,
too strong.
lionfish have rapidly spread to other ocean servers without much pushback, at least until they reach the tropical Atlantic. See, there is one fish build that has been able to consistently
Yeah,
take
I know, there was like a shark build who can destroy like the lionfish. I saw this.
down lionfish. And once I show you how broken some of their abilities are, it'll be easy to understand why.
Oh, I don't
We've
know
got
if it was
two
a
more
shark.
builds to showcase in
Maybe
S
it
tier,
was
but real quick,
a
I just want to point
eel?
out that this is the longest video I've made so far,
Moe?
and took a huge amount of time and resources to produce. So if you're enjoying it and want more content like this, please do consider subscribing. Thanks.
Yeah, Moe eel. I
The
know
moray eel
those.
is one of the most uniquely powerful fish in the
Ew.
game, with a set of strange yet highly functional abilities and well-placed base stat allocations. So first, their stats. While the highest aquatic power rating falls to sharks and whales, a close runner-up is the moray. Their teeth resemble broken glass and can do similarly brutal damage in combat. Their mobility is surprisingly high for a fish that lacks pectoral and pelvic fins, but in addition to having great maneuverability in the tight spaces of a reef, they're capable of some pretty impressive bursts of speed too. Their stealth may seem low due to their vibrant coloring, but honestly, bright colors are everywhere in reef servers, so they don't stick out too much. In fact, their ability to contort and fit into crevices and other tight spaces gives them a pretty huge advantage for ambushing other players.
Oh no.
Where things get interesting though is with their defense. The moray has a slime-based special ability, which serves multiple defensive purposes.
Mucus.
It protects them from taking abrasion and puncture damage while passing through sharp coral and jagged spaces within the reef. But perhaps more surprisingly, it's great at deflecting damage from things like teeth and spikes. Not only does this give them a great matchup against sharks, but it also makes them one of the only builds in the game capable of taking down the lionfish. This excellent matchup spread makes placing
This
the
guy
moray
is
eel in S
strong,
tier an
what the
easy
heck?
decision.
I am scared of morays. I am very, very scared of them. I had like a childhood trauma where I went to like an aquarium and I was looking at all the small fish in the aquarium, and like the next tank I was watching was just like 5 ginormous moray, and I was small. I was very, very small, and they were scaring me so much. I literally just cried. Because all the fish were so small before, and then there was a ginormous tank, like Gigantomonosaurus, like 10 times my size, with 4 scary looking morays in it. And I think that's why I got my subnautophobia, yeah. Or the fear from like deep waters, because it was just looking scary. And it was looking so scary as a kid. For me now, the movies are only like the size of my arm. But when I was a little bit little, when you are, it's like a psychological thing. When you're like scared, you are imagining things bigger most of the time. And I was scared. They were ginormous for me, like the same size as me. But no. Billfish. Schwertfish.
The final build on this tier list is the billfish. This includes the marlin, swordfish, and sailfish, all of which have similar playstyles. This group is top tier for 2 reasons. First is that they have the highest swim speed in the game, beating out not just all other fish, but also mammals and birds. In addition to having unmatched speed, their large dorsal fins allow them to make tighter turns than most fish too, making them extremely good at chasing down prey. Their most unique trait, however, is their bill, one of the strangest offensive abilities in the game.
What? It actually works?
For both slashing and stabbing. This attack is one of the few in the game able to hit multiple targets at once. This makes it excellent for countering the ubiquitous safety in numbers strategy many fish players adopt. And since the billfish hunt in packs, they can rack up insane kill counts, rivaling the hunting prowess of even a pot of dolphins. With busted stats and a signature move that's both flashy and downright broken, to me there's no question that the billfish is the most overpowered fish build in the game.
Okay. To be honest,
Regardless of where your favorite fish build falls on the tier list, one thing's for sure. Adaptation is key to survivability in the current meta, and it's important to always be exploring new strategies to stay ahead of the curve. The same can be said for YouTubers, and this is why a bunch of creators and I have started an experiment called Nebula, a new platform that gives us the freedom to pursue the projects we want without needing to fear monetization nor optimize for YouTube's desired metrics. In addition to posting ad-free versions of all my new videos days in advance on Nebula, there's also hours of original content on there that you can't get anywhere else. On top of my Let's Play Outside series, which I've talked about before, I've also recently put out a podcast with my friend Alex from the channel Low Spec Gamer, where he interviews me about my creation process and how I started this channel. I'd love for you to go and check it out. So what does CuriosityStream have to do with this? Well, not only have they been this channel's biggest supporter for quite some time now, they've also partnered with Nebula so that we can bring you both services for less than the cost of either one individually. Normally, the annual subscription to CuriosityStream is $20 a year, and the typical Nebula subscription is $30 per year. Yet when combined, you can get both for $14.79, easily one of the best deals in streaming. And of course, CuriosityStream is also an excellent service, with thousands of high-quality documentaries to buff your knowledge stat. If you want to learn more about fish, I recommend their docu-series Deep Ocean, narrated by the legendary David Attenborough. But if you're just in the mood for some nostalgia, they've also got those awesome old BBC dinosaur documentaries too. So whatever you're in the mood for, this bundle has you covered. To get started, head over to curiositystream.com/TierZoo. Thank you all so much for watching, and thanks especially to my patrons on Patreon. Until next time, good luck out there.
What? Okay, to be honest, you know, there's so many random fish. I think there's like a shark with like a blade nose. It looks like a chainsaw nose. And most of them, when they have like a very sharp tip, or I don't know, very weird looking beak, they are always like useless. They're always looking so useless. And most of the time they are. Wait a second. Because they're not doing anything, but the marlin or the... I don't know what the last thingy was. I think we call it marlin here. Let me turn on something. Okay. Now. Yeah, the marlin is like a scary thing. I didn't knew that he was so fast. One of the fastest creatures in this planet. I love the fish tier list. It was crazy. It was literally the thing I wanted to see. Stupid fish. But it makes sense. It makes you a lot of sense. So wait a second, let me activate the next video. Wow. There was like a shark tail list. He said there's like a shark tail list. I never saw this one. I saw so less like videos of his channel, to be honest. But I love them. Wait. He really did one, but it was a long time ago. Yeah, it was a very long time ago. There's a deep sea matter, but it's 5 years ago. I don't know if I'm going to watch it. Yeah, his shark deal is 5 years ago. Let's still watch it. It's old gold. Why not? Wow, oh scary. That was loud. Okay. Window capture. Wow. Okay. Wow.
Innovations made by players have been the main driving force behind the biggest meta shifts.
Oh, his microphone is so different.
Game. And today I want to highlight one of the most important, the implementation of the move Bite. There's actually a fair bit of debate on which guilds can take credit for pioneering this move. But there's no question that one of the first to really perfect it, to the point of being meta-defining, were none other than the Sharks. And since then, they've been holding on to that top spot tighter than Ice Climber players hold onto a wobbling victim. They've been extremely relevant in every expansion since the Silurian, something very few guilds can claim. So today I'll go over the tier list of the Sharks, and highlight the main attributes and abilities which have made them such fearsome builds. Overall, Sharks are at a pretty good spot in the meta, averaging around B tier. The main benefits of playing a Shark build include high mobility, high damage, and most importantly, the ability to sense any player near you due to special abilities like Blood Sense and Electroreception. Main drawbacks include lacking Swim Bladder, an ability which allows the user to control their buoyancy at will, and also lacking Gill Flaps. Gill Flaps passively regenerate stamina, and is an ability unique to bony fish, so sharks can only regenerate
They don't
stamina
have
if
it?
they're moving. Now let's talk about individual shark
Wait,
builds.
what?
As always, we'll start from the bottom of the tier list and work our way up. In bottom tier, we have nothing. There are genuinely no shark builds that could justify as being bottom tier. Most sharks don't deviate too far from the base shark concept, which is good because it's a great guide for success. With that said, not all sharks are created equal, and in D tier we have two builds which don't really capitalize on any of the benefits of
It
the
was the
shark
thing I
class.
was talking about on the right, I
Nurse
think.
shark. Low mobility, sedentary playstyle, and a really weak bite. Instead of abusing the powerful kit available for shark classes, nurse sharks rummage around the ocean floor looking for easy XP. However, they do have the strongest suction force of any fish, and since they don't have many terrible
He's
matchups,
sea
they're
vacuum.
definitely no F tier. Second in D tier we have the saw shark. Saw shark players,
I saw
what are you
him.
doing? Teeth are some of the best weapons in the game, and the only drawback to using them is that breaking them can ruin your playthrough. But sharks have replaceable teeth, so that weakness is completely nullified.
Hey,
So
it's
why did you
OP.
opt for this goofy, cumbersome, and impractical weapon setup?
What?
Swinging that thing around uses way too much stamina for what it nets you.
But it
and
looks
isn't very
cool.
useful for defending yourself. Whatever.
It looks
you
so
do you, I
cool.
guess. In C tier, we've got all the sharks that decided they'd rather AFK their entire game instead of making use of the best tools available to sharks. This includes the
AFK feed
basking
us.
shark, bull shark, and any other shark who thought filter feeding was a better idea than being a swimming doom machine. Yes, it may be easy if you make it to the late game, but without good weapons and low mobility, the majority of your playthrough is
My opinion, basking shots are so scary. Basking shots, I know they're not going to do something to you, but just imagine you are swimming somewhere and you're looking into the water and you see like this thing just swimming towards you. It would be terrifying.
a huge risk, with
But I love whale sharks. They're looking cute for some reason. They're so flat.
mobile fish players like the marlin and sailfish having no problem taking you out. Now we're in B tier, and we're almost to the shark builds who know how sharks are meant to be played. Almost. But first, we've got two more unorthodox builds. Some of my personal favorites, actually. The first is a shark who decided that, despite being one of the smallest of its kind, it would attack the largest builds in the game. The cookie cutter shark.
Oh,
Cookie cutter sharks are unorthodox in that
ew, I
instead of
hate
going for the
those.
predator playstyle, they function as a parasite. They simply latch onto a whale or other massive player,
Yeah,
and by
they're
twisting
so
themselves back and
disgusting.
forth, they steal a cookie-shaped bite right off.
Look at
This doesn't
that.
do much damage to players, but interestingly, this build was a secret among the Shark Guild up until a few cookie cutter players accidentally attacked human submarines and actually caused their sonar to malfunction. This was during the Cold War, so the Russians and Americans assumed that the other was
Yeah,
somehow sabotaged.
they thought the other side were like attacking their submarines, but it was just cookie cutter sharks. It's crazy how like they can bite through metal. That's impressive.
Sabotaging their submarines, until eventually a Soviet sub surfaced with a shark player still latched on. In B+,
Idiot.
we have a shark which uses one of the only AoE stun moves seen in the entire game, the Thresher Shark.
Huh.
Attacking a school of fish is difficult, and due to their advanced evasion and diversion tactics, you have to be fast, lucky, or clever in order to even catch a single fish. That is, unless you can hit them with a flashbang, which is essentially what Thresher Sharks do. Thresher Sharks have tails as long as the rest of their body, and they use them as a whip, creating
They have
shock
a whip,
waves which
yeah.
stun small groups of fish,
Crazy.
negating their normally excellent evasion abilities. They do all of this without deviating too far from the great base stats of the
What?
Shark build, so they retain decent mobility and attack power while wielding this weapon. In A tier, we finally get to those famous core shark builds everyone knows, loves, and fears. It's hard to rank these in relation to each other because they're all just so darn great. We'll start with the tiger sharks. Tiger sharks have higher stealth than most of the
Normal
well-known
tiger
builds,
shark.
and also have uniquely shaped teeth that make them more effective at cutting through armor and bone. Similar to actual tigers, the main strategy of a tiger shark is to get close to its target with stealth, and then use a quick burst of speed to snatch it before it can react.
Oh, the
On
tiger shark
opposite
is
end
so
of the spectrum
basic.
from this strategy, we have the mako shark, which has the highest mobility of all the sharks, and uses this to chase
Wait,
down
he's
its targets.
small. I know he's
This
small.
playstyle requires a lot of stamina, so this build breaks the mold and opts for warm blood instead of being cold-blooded like most other fish. This gives the mako shark the benefits of fast stamina regeneration, allowing it to keep up a pursuit longer than most other hunters. Since the
Ah.
speed comes at a cost to size, it doesn't quite have the monstrous weight advantage over its targets,
A
and so mako
warm-blooded
players need
shark.
to be careful and not get too greedy. The ocean's other premier speed demons, the swordfish and marlin, can be tough matchups for them. At the top of A tier, we have the bull shark, which has two unique and powerful abilities. The first is that they have the highest bite force of any shark, meaning that even though they have pretty average teeth in terms of slicing and cutting utility, they can still deliver an extremely potent bite.
What
The
the
second
heck?
ability is that bull sharks can enter freshwater servers without receiving the energy sapping and damaging debuff that obligate saltwater builds do. This allows them to travel into rivers and streams where they have
What the
no real
heck?
competition.
That's
This
scary.
makes bull sharks the best build for griefing low-level players. And judging by the bull shark's reputation for being the most aggressive shark,
What?
it's clear that this is exactly the type of player that this build attracts. And here we are, the head honchos of the Shark Guild. There's two builds here that occupy low S tier, and honestly I can't place one above the other, they're both just awesome.
Two
What makes them
sharks.
so excellent is how well they use their tracking abilities, blood sense, and electroreception.
Is it the
The
hammerhead
Great White
shark?
Shark is no doubt the most feared ocean build in the current meta, and the closest thing to the god tier Megalodon still in existence.
Oh.
They pretty much just take everything that makes sharks so strong and push all of those things to their limit.
Yeah,
They
they're
don't
so
have as high
basic.
bite damage as the tiger or bull shark.
For
The
real?
force of a great white's charge attack slamming into their target more than makes up for it, and usually takes the stock no problem. Hunting seal players is difficult
Wait, what
because
the
they're
heck?
clever
They're so
and
much
try to
bigger.
avoid putting themselves at risk when they don't need to. This is why the great white's ability to see above water is so crucial, because they can see which islands and reefs their targets are hiding on and camp them out. Their blood sense ability is through the roof, and their electroreception ability is quite polished as well, but nowhere near to the extent of the last build on my list, the Hammerhead.
I knew it!
Now, if
He's
you aren't
crazy.
a Hammerhead player, I'm willing to bet that when you look at this build, you think the player fell asleep during character creation and accidentally set eye to the max. But if you think this option is purely aesthetic and not intentional, you couldn't be more wrong. Hammerheads have the best, most well-optimized sensory abilities in the game. They have full panoramic vision and have binocular eyesight ahead and behind them, which gives them a massive accuracy bonus on the attack and a huge evasion bonus if they're being chased. With the chemo and electroreceptors on the front of their face, they essentially have 3D smell and 3D electroreception, putting their spatial awareness almost as high as dolphins and bats. Their snout shape also lets them turn on a dime, which makes it so their attacks almost never miss. Furthermore, while they don't hunt together, they do travel in schools, providing safety in numbers
Oh no,
and causing
turtle.
an intimidation debuff on pretty much the entire surrounding area.
Oh,
So that's the tier list for the Sharks. As you can see, they're an amazing class with a lot of useful abilities and strengths to play around with. They have only a few bad mashups like dolphins, orcas,
Oh,
and a few other
orcas.
top tier fish like swordfish
orcas are
and
scary.
marlin.
Wait, that ended abruptly.
This episode was
What the
sponsored by
heck?
Wix.
This is an old video. What? This is 4 years ago, but it sounds worse than the 3 years ago's one. Okay, let's look up the. There's a lizard tail. I love lizards. I like sharks. I like sharks, and I didn't knew that like hammerhead sharks were so good. I thought they were like the sawtooth one, like the one in F tier. No, not F tier, D tier. Where you just like got a weird head, like a weird shaped head. Just played around, but no, he's actually useful. I knew that he had some kind of like electroreceptors on his head, but I didn't knew that they were literally working. I thought they were for things like, I don't know, knowing where to swim. I don't know. But yeah, sharks have to actually swim the entire time. But to be honest, I think there's like a F tier shark. Is there not like this one Greenland shark or something like this? Who lives like in the Arctic, who is very, very slow and does nothing the entire day? Is there not something like this? He sounds very, very weak. He does literally nothing. He's slow, and I think his metabolism is so slow because he's living like in a very cold area. I think at least. Yeah, let's watch the the lizard tier list. Good old lizard tier list. Wow. Lizards are not fish, but lizards are funny looking. Parakeet. Why are animals doing this all the time? They're like
This
attacking
video was
things.
made in partnership with CuriosityStream.
It's Curiosity
Reptiles
Stream
are a
again.
diverse faction full of many strategies, and generally speaking, they tend to be fairly straightforward. Turtles are tank builds that spec into high defensive stats at the cost of mobility. Crocodiles are damage dealers that focus on grappling to secure kills. Snakes optimize for stealth and rely on status effects to bring down their targets. But where do lizards fit into the meta?
Oh.
They aren't really known for extreme speed, but as far as cold-blooded builds go, they're quicker than most. And while not as tanky as turtles, and not as stealthy as snakes, they can hold their own in each of these departments as well. Some of the larger lizards can even give crocodilians a run for their money in the
Yeah,
power
Komodo
category, too.
dragons.
While many of them could best be described as jack-of-all-trades generalists, there are also plenty of lizards with extremely unique abilities. So to better understand the many different game plans employed by the lizard player base, today we're going through the lizard tier list. Before we get into the tier list though, first I'd like to start with some background on the history of the lizard faction.
Lizards were so
back
OP in
during
the
the
back.
Carboniferous expansion, the meta revolved around the conflict between the two most powerful factions, the amphibians and the arthropods. However, during this time, a small subsection of the amphibian player base unlocked two new special abilities: the eggshell, which allowed them to respawn on dry land rather than in
I'm
water.
so confused. How did they like respawn back in the days? Did they just, you know, like poop them out like normal mammals? I really wonder. When they didn't had eggs, they had to just really birth them like normal mammals today.
And scales, which gave them massively increased dehydration resistance. This eliminated their reliance on water and allowed them to explore tons of new strategies, eventually diversifying into all of the reptile builds in today's meta, as well as a few that were so overpowered that they ended up getting nerfed. The most powerful lizard build of all time was the Mosasaurus, a build that arose from a player base of beach-dwelling monitor lizards that spec'd into aquatic mobility options in order to avoid being briefed by dinosaurs. But what are the most powerful lizards of today's meta? We're actually going to begin in D tier, as I don't think there are any truly awful lizard builds. The adaptations that—
Why not? Okay, I might be stupid for saying this, but are not most of the dinosaurs lizards? Like, I don't know, is the Spinosaurus not a lizard? Or is he a reptile? I don't know the difference between the reptile and the lizard. I know the reptiles are like the over category, but what is Spinosaurus? It's a dinosaur. Oh.
they've made to eliminate the weaknesses of their amphibian ancestors is enough to escape bottom tier, in my opinion. So how do lizards stack up? Let's get into the tier list.
Skink!
In
I have
D
so many
tier, we have the
skinks.
skink, a smaller lizard build with very little in the way of unique
I love
special
skinks.
abilities. Their stats are also quite low, and their game plan generally just consists of chasing down players in the lower weight classes, and struggles pretty hard when forced to defend itself. In particular, this build has a lot of trouble dealing with birds. Despite the fact that it often hunts in grassy fields, it lacks the stealth stats required to avoid detection from above. In fact, many skinks are known for being brightly colored or having one specifically brightly colored body part. Skinks try to avoid being griefed by digging burrows for themselves, and while burrows are a great hiding place, the burrowing playstyle tends to work best when you've got the ability to launch a powerful attack in a single direction, since the bottleneck of a burrow makes it near impossible for a predator to approach without getting hit. Skinks can't really mount any sort of attack, so if their burrow gets discovered, it's most likely game over. The one defensive ability they do have is one commonly found in the lizard player base.
Losing the tail? Yeah.
Autonomy allows the user to drop their tail in order to get one free escape.
I really don't know why and how did they evolve into like losing their tail. It's crazy. And I don't understand why not many other like animals are doing this. Because it's kind of OP there. It's like a second wind.
From a combo or grab. Now, to be fair, being able to break out of your opponent's death combos is an extremely useful trait that can save you from certain defeat. But with that said, autonomy is extremely costly to use, isn't guaranteed to work, and leaves you with reduced max HP for the rest of the game, even if your character has regenerative abilities. For the larger lizard builds, losing your tail also removes one of your best offensive options.
What the
But
heck?
for the skink, this isn't as big a problem. With all that being said, skinks are one of the more lackluster lizard builds, so let's keep going and get to the more interesting ones.
Can the big lizards lose their tail
Also in D
too?
tier we have the basilisk lizard, which is most notable for its use of the sprint ability, not just to move fast on land, but also to cross bodies
What?
of water. At first, this ability seems quite impressive, and it certainly is a flashy move, but upon
What the
further
heck?
examination, I don't think it's really all that useful in the long run.
This guy
Being
can
on the
talk on,
surface of
walk on
water is
water?
quite possibly the most vulnerable position in the game, leaving you open to attacks from above and below. But ultimately, I think it's more important to just point out that the whole reason the reptile faction split off from the amphibian player base in the first place was to remove their reliance on water. So choosing an ability with a pretty situational use that also requires that the user be on the water's edge to use it is kind of a step backwards in the grand scheme of things. The Basilisk doesn't even have bad stats. It couldn't use the water dash move without above average mobility. But still, I think its choice of moveset is pretty self-limiting.
What the heck?
and they'd be
This is
better off
kinda
sticking to other
cannibalism.
signature moves.
Gecko.
In C tier,
Gecko.
we have two lizard builds
I
who
love
invested
geckos.
heavily into the climbing ability. The Gecko build operates in a similar manner to the Tree Frog, with
Geckos
cling
are so
paths
cute.
enabling it to climb any surface with ease. As far as mobility perks though, this is probably one of the best in the game. It works great as an escape
at him.
option, but is also fantastic for utility and even for offense, allowing the user to approach targets that are normally harder to reach. Being able to hang on tight is also super important for arboreal combat.
What is this?
As fall damage is
It's
a
a
major
snake.
threat. With such a strong clinging ability, geckos can often be the ones tossing other players into the void below. Geckos do have a fair number of weaknesses though. They opt to use their tails to store energy, which can be a useful ability, but unfortunately in doing so, they take away the option to use their tails to attack. Geckos also do not have scales, instead opting for skin that gives disease resistance bonuses, so their armor class is lower than that of most lizards, and actually more akin to amphibians.
That's why they're
Because
looking
of
so
this, they're
soft.
quite vulnerable to piercing damage, such as bird talons and snake fangs. And with relatively low damage output, their only real hope against such attacks is stealth, which some do definitely excel at.
Wow.
All in all, solid mid-tier.
I love geckos. We had so many geckos at home. Geckos were like our main contender against like mosquitoes and other bugs at our house, like in Asia land. Geckos were like a good like natural insecticide. They were so good. And did you ever like heard a gecko make a sound? They're making like the craziest sounds possible. That's nice thingy.
The Anole is a small, agile lizard build with a surprising number of special abilities, most notable of which are their adhesive toe pads and their color-changing skin. Most builds that run the cling pad ability tend to be more bulky and cumbersome. Anoles emphatically break this mold, being both excellent climbers and having a climbing speed that rivals that of the squirrel. Because of this, they're great at escaping attacks by jumping between trees and scrambling up branches. But where things really get interesting is with the color change perk.
What?
Now, the ability to change colors is one of the most downright broken stealth perks in the game,
It
and
looks
one
so
of the
cool.
main reasons I consider cephalopods top tier. Anoles have probably the most basic version of the color change perk, allowing them to shift between green and brown at will.
Oh,
While nowhere near as versatile as some other color changing builds, green and brown are pretty much all you'd need the vast majority of the time.
that's true.
This change is very gradual though, so it's unlikely to allow you to escape mid-combat. Which is unfortunate because, similar to the gecko, the Anole suffers from a lack of combat options when caught up in the
No.
open.
What the heck? Gila
Last in
monster,
C
what
tier we
is
have
this?
The Gila monster. The Gila monster is one of the tankier lizard builds, and possesses one of the highest damage
I never saw
outputs
his
in
guy
the
in my
game
life.
for its size. It owes this high damage not to its actual power stat, but
Poison.
to its venomous bite, a rare ability among lizards. This makes them extremely dangerous in close combat, and combined with their excellent defensive stats and digging ability, this allows them to easily vanquish all of the players in any nest.
Oh, he's
it
not so
discovers.
big, to be honest.
The Gila monster is extremely slow moving though.
Yeah,
which
it's
can cause
the
issues if it's ever forced
same
to
size
flee,
as a
or if
squirrel.
it needs to chase down a target. The lack of a long whip-like tail also means its defensive combat options aren't near as diverse as other larger lizards. Still, with one of the most devastating bites in the game, it's certainly no low tier.
Skulls are fearless
B tier, we
iguana.
got a tried and true iguana, arguably the best representative of the lizard build as a whole, as it has essentially all the main weaknesses and strengths of its class. I have an entire video on the iguana, so go
Huh?
check that out if you want an in-depth review. But in short,
Crazy.
the iguana sports mid-range stats across the board, and is the first lizard on the tier list to make use of its tail for something other than a sacrificial scapegoat. The iguana's tail whip attack allows it to control a solid defensive zone around itself in all directions, enabling it to defend itself from group attacks. Tail whip's damage is on the low side though, so a persistent attacker could potentially just eat the damage in order to
What
break
the
through
heck?
and land its own attacks. The iguana
No.
also has access to the autonomy ability, but this is especially costly in the iguana's case, as it'd also be giving up its best combat move in the process. Overall, a solid mid-tier with lots of potential, especially in the marine
They can
sectors.
swim. Wait, what?
The chameleon build sports several of the most unique abilities in the game. So most lizards,
Chameleons are so cute. Chameleons are so cute. The same thing with iguanas. They're like beautiful pets. I don't know if you should like keep them as pets, but I know many people that do. And iguanas and chameleons are wonderful pets. Yeah, they're so nice. I love them.
especially the insectivorous ones, have a pretty simple game plan for taking down enemies. Chase them down and grab them. This strategy has a lot of limitations though. First of all, it means you've got pretty much no options to attack a player who is too large to grab. It also forces you to optimize heavily towards mobility, forcing you to neglect other potential
What the heck?
strategies in order
Look
to
at
have
how
a
he's
chance of
running.
catching up to your target. The chameleon subverts this limitation by speccing into one of the strangest abilities in the game, a tether tongue attack.
Like a
This
frog.
essentially functions as a ranged grab, and is extremely effective at scoring the chameleon kills.
I never realized how weird it is actually that like chameleons have like such a long tongue, and frogs too. It's kind of weird when you think about it.
This also allows the chameleon the freedom to prioritize other
Whoa.
stats.
What the heck? I know that chameleon hands are weird, but I never saw them like. I forgot that their hands are so weird. Wait, they're like two little pinchers. They have like crab hands. What the heck?
Over mobility, and in the chameleon's case, they're clearly optimized for stealth, as evidenced by their other special ability, color change. Now, while chameleons can change
I love
color
their
in order to
tail.
buff their camouflage, most use it for communication and intimidation, shifting to brighter colors to display dominance. While they don't have the same cling pads that geckos and anoles do, their prehensile tail gives them extra security to ensure that they don't get easily ripped out of trees, and allows them to attack from riskier positions. With all this said though, they still struggle when caught out in the open because of their low mobility.
Oh no.
And they also share the same offensive weakness of not being able to take down players that they can't gulp down in a single bite.
What did you try to do, my man?
The Tegu is a lizard build that has long been overlooked, but has recently
And chameleons are so slow. I never saw like a chameleon like running around. They are always so slow. But really, this is a Tegu.
become a serious contender
This looks like a small Komodo dragon, to be honest.
on the tier list. Its recent invasion into the North American server has destabilized the local meta, and
It
when
looks
you look at their
tanky.
stats, it's easy to see why. Tegus are similar in both strategy and stats to the iguana, but slightly slower and more defense-oriented. Their thicker hide and stockier build allows them to shake off attacks that would send other characters reeling. They've also got a higher intelligence stat than most lizards, which in addition
he's
to
the
making
egg
them
eater.
surprisingly decent support builds, also makes them great at outsmarting builds like alligators in order to attack their nests. Tegus are also omnivores, meaning they aren't forced to participate in PvP in order to level up.
That's OP.
They did spec into the autonomy ability though, which I unfortunately think keeps them out of top tier.
You.
Before I reveal the top tier lizards, I just want to say real quick, if you've made it this far and are enjoying the video, it would sure make my day if you subscribed. Thanks. So, without a
Monitor
shadow of a
lizard.
doubt,
Wait! I heard about this guy. Some people talked about him that they are just outside. Normal monitor lizard. Crazy.
the best lizard build is the monitor lizard. They have
Look at how long he is.
They've got the best stats, a combination of great mobility, power, size, and intelligence. Similar to the iguana, monitor lizards have an extremely powerful tail whip, capable of deterring even top-tier predators. Monitor lizards also have a venomous bite, which again is
What?
a rarity in the lizard faction. While not
He's
the
like a
same
small
lizards
Komodo
outright,
dragon.
They do have great versatility in their movement, being able to swim efficiently as well as climb most surfaces, though not to the same degree as the marine iguana or the gecko respectively. Their high intelligence enables them to consistently figure out ways to successfully raid the spawn points of other players, and their high defense makes it so they can be rather difficult to stop once they've committed to an attack. This faction also contains the most powerful lizard in the game, a lizard that reaches near dinosaur power levels.
Komodo dragon, I knew it.
Komodo dragons are extremely powerful. They have a venomous bite that, while not as powerful as cobra venom, is still powerful enough to seriously weaken even the tankiest builds. But even without that, they'd be an absolute powerhouse. Their tail swipes, claw slashes, and thrashing bites can
They're
easily
so
shred through
scary.
the HP of their targets. Their only real weakness is their speed, which, while solid, isn't broken by any means. Still, with their incredible sense of smell, a player can never really truly escape a Komodo that's hunting them. The distance that you need to flee in order to make the Komodo unable to track you down would require you to leave the island server entirely. Last but certainly not least, Komodos, as well as the entire monitor lizard player base, understand that their tails are an invaluable weapon that shouldn't be sacrificed in order to escape
That
a
would be
battle.
crazy to have like Komodo
So,
dragon
there you have it,
tails.
the lizard tier list. Hopefully now you've got a good understanding of the lizard's strategies and matchups. Admittedly,
Oh.
there were a few things I had to cut from the script of this video to avoid demonetization or age restriction. If you want to see the director's cut of this episode, you can check it out on Nebula, a streaming service made by and for creators. I do this with all
Nebula.
of my new videos,
Hey,
uploading
gang.
ad-free and uncensored versions of my videos there, as well as a few entirely exclusive videos. In addition, you can check out my appearance on the Nebula exclusive
Exclusive
podcast,
videos.
Genesis, if you're interested in hearing my character's backstory. Nebula has partnered with CuriosityStream to bring you both services
Again.
for less than $15 a year.
Double
Which is 26%
sponsor.
off the price of what CuriosityStream
The newer
alone
one.
normally goes for. CuriosityStream, if you somehow didn't already know, is another amazing streaming service where you can watch thousands of high-quality documentaries, including Amazing Dino World, a documentary about the aforementioned Mosasaurus. To get access, head to curiositystream.com/TierZoos. Thanks again to
26%.
CuriosityStream for partnering with us at Nebula. Thank you to my patrons on Patreon, and thank you for watching.
Okay. I like lizards. Lizards are way too scary. They are way too scary. I would not fight against a Komodo dragon, but I saw, how you call it? I already saw a monitor lizard. Yeah, they are so scary. Frog tier list. Frog. Whoa, this is old. It's 3 years ago. What the heck? I was not thinking that.
Video was sponsored by
I'm pretty addicted to them.
CuriosityStream.
They're so fun. But this one is a little bit louder. At least for me.
Long live the king.
What the heck?
Amphibians are one of the oldest factions in the game, having been added to the game in a late Devonian expansion. The marine meta at the time was hostile, to say the least. So it made sense that the devs would let smaller fish players spec into legs and lungs so
Ew.
they could finally join the arthropods on the terrestrial servers.
What the
The
heck?
fact that amphibians have remained at least moderately viable in the meta this entire time
Was this the sucker
and
some
survived
buspis?
multiple rounds of balance patches is impressive to say the least. And while the amphibian faction has several popular build styles, the most well-known is the frog. The role frogs occupy in the current meta is
I love frogs. They're looking so
at low
funny.
levels, they're easily some of the least powerful builds in the entire game. Only about
Chunky.
0.5% of tadpoles actually reach the late game and get to unlock the rest of the frog skill tree. But is that even worth it? How viable is the adult frog? There's some things that they're among the best at, and from a gameplay perspective, I think they offer a fun and unique playstyle. But with that said, the frog has a lot of glaring weaknesses, holding it back from a higher tier spot in the meta. Still, there are some standout members that have their own unique perks and special abilities that make them more viable than your average frog in the current meta. So today, we'll be going over the tier list of the frogs. But first, let's discuss the basic archetype and what its main advantages and disadvantages are.
Jumping.
Taking a quick look at the frog stats, we can pretty easily see that there are a lot of shortcomings
Mobility
here.
and stealth.
The frog player base has spec'd into skin that offers stamina regeneration in the water, since it can directly exchange oxygen with its surroundings when wet.
Yeah,
This is a
I
useful
already heard like frogs don't have to drink water. Frogs can like absorb water through their skin. That's crazy.
ability, especially given how costly the frog's jump is in terms of stamina. However, this skin offers nothing in terms of defense and is easily pierced by any attack.
What
The
is
frog
wrong with
also
this
lacks
bug?
any form of damage boosting abilities, having no teeth to boost its bite damage and no horns or spikes to power up its body slam damage, giving it one of the lowest power stats in the game. It does somewhat make up for this with its strong grab, but seeing as this is useless against players in or above the frog's weight class, this doesn't factor into the frog's general power level since it's so matchup dependent. Their intelligence stat isn't much to boast about either, having one of the simplest brain structures of any vertebrate.
Oh no.
Now, for some positives, the frog's stealth in most cases is above average. Cryptic coloration is already a good start, and when combined with the fact that their eyes protrude enough to let them remain almost completely submerged while keeping their vision above water, frogs can be pretty stealthy. This plays nicely with the frog's other decent stat, their mobility. The frog's basic movement speed is quite low, definitely not enough to let them escape an attack or chase down prey. However, the frog build relies almost exclusively on unconventional movement options. Their webbed feet give them fairly high swim speed, which is pretty important for escaping attacks underwater.
But
Some frogs also have cling pads, which allow them to climb almost any
they have
surface.
so
with ease.
long legs sometimes.
They aren't speedy climbers, but the range of surfaces they can climb is impressive. However, obviously the frog's best and most important movement ability is their jump, which is by far the best of any vertebrate and second only to the grasshopper in terms of relative distance. This jump ability constitutes the core gameplay of the frog build, but is this actually a worthwhile ability?
I
As an
don't
escape
know.
option, I think it's good in the right situation, specifically if there's good cover nearby. However, it's not that useful when caught out in the open. While over short distances, it makes the user extremely difficult to catch. Its high stamina cost means that if safety is far away, it's likely you'll burn through all of your stamina before you get there, giving your attacker
There's
time to
another
catch
one.
up. It also does nothing to help when you're already caught in a grab, though some frogs have ways of dealing with this too. Where the frog's jump ability really shines through is as an approach option. It allows the frog to strike targets from a considerable distance, including ones in the air, which is important given that many of the frog's primary targets will have the flying perk. Combined with the frog's excellent tether grab tongue, the frog is one of the best builds in the game at landing
Yeah, I
grabs
never
on
saw
builds
like a
that are
frog
normally
now
near
in
impossible
those
to hit.
videos with a
Now, with
long
that
tongue.
said, leaping at a target requires a huge commitment from the frog player, as the move has a huge amount of end leg, and leave the user in a potentially vulnerable position. If you whiff this attack, by the time the frog is able to act again, it's likely that your target will either be long gone or counterattacking. Most of the outside player base considers amphibians to be one of the weakest, if not the weakest faction in the entire game.
What
Their
the-
abysmal environmental and disease resistance stats make them extremely vulnerable to shifts in the meta, including the climate patch that's been recently added to
Oh
the game.
no.
With all of this said, despite the harsh, rapidly changing meta of the Anthropocene
Amphibians
expansion,
are way too
there are
soft.
plenty of frog builds that have still
And
had
small.
decent success in this meta. At the bottom of the tier list, we have the tree frog. The tree frog build swaps out the webbed feet for cling pads, meaning they don't have that great of swim speed, but gain a near unparalleled climbing ability similar to
That
the gecko.
sounds good, to be honest.
My main issue with this build is that the tree frog playstyle turns the awesome jumping ability of the frog into more of a liability than an advantage. Jumping to escape a predator's attack means that you're risking taking some pretty serious fall damage. This also means that jumping to catch bugs midair is a non-option, negating the main benefit
Wait,
of having
he
the
cannot
ability in
jump?
the first place. Now, some do mitigate this drawback by also speccing into the webbed feet ability, which, while normally only useful for water mobility, can also have the niche effect of reducing fall damage. Still, picking up a
They have,
costly
like,
extra
a
ability
little
for its
parachute.
secondary effect isn't exactly the mark of a top tier. In D tier, we have, well, basically all of the pond frogs that stick really close to the standard frog build that I laid out at the start of this video. They have a great jump, webbed feet to boost aquatic movement speed, and solid camouflage. And since I just spent the beginning of the video explaining why I think this isn't enough to be viable, I won't spend any more time discussing them here. They at least get the main benefits out of the abilities that they do have though, and are undoubtedly more successful than amphibians like salamanders, so I can't place them in bottom tier. In C tier we have the common toad build. The reason
What?
toads tend to fare better than your standard pond frog is that they're significantly more sturdy. While they aren't exactly
just more
armored,
tanky.
their thicker skin is quite good at reducing incoming damage. Regular frogs are so fragile that even smaller insects can deal lethal damage.
no.
Toads, on the other hand, can tank at least a few hits, which is usually enough to let them overcome most arthropod opponents. This thicker skin has the secondary effect of granting them more resistance to dehydration, giving them versatility.
Okay. Frogs are toads. Toads are frogs. Toads are frogs. Okay, I had to realize that.
And range that the standard pond frog can't match. This does come at a cost though, as toads have a much less powerful jump. However, since they're less vulnerable to attacks, quickly jumping to safety isn't as crucial. Most toads also incorporate mild chemical defenses to help discourage builds from higher weight classes from griefing them.
Poison
However, when it
glands.
comes to toxic defenses, few builds in the game can boast about poison damage more so than the poison dart frog. The poison dart frog sports the lowest stats of any frog build, even going so far as to drop its stealth rating too, all in the name of spending every possible evolution point on one of the most toxic defensive poisons in the game. Their poison is strong enough to drop any player's HP to 0 relatively quickly
What?
after biting the frog player. Personally, I've never been a fan of poison strats since it requires you to be attacked and take damage in order to actually activate its effect. On top of this, there are very few abilities that I'd suggest such drastic sacrifices in order to attain. So the fact that the poison dart frog cuts all of its stats in order to min-max
Poison is kinda useless when you think about it. Most of the animals, when they're like poison an other animal, they're not going to eat them later, they're just going to protect themselves, so, it's kinda nice, but, yeah. Life really works kinda in like evolution points, I think. I think the more you like evolution in one direction, the more other things you like lose. It's like with bacteria. Bacteria can like evolve to be immune against antibiotics, but cannot have to like give up a couple of other things to get immune to antibiotics. So it's kind of like the same with like animals. And when animals are like evolving into poisonous thingies, what do they even eat? Just imagine they would put all the evolution points that they got like into poison and something else. It would be useful. It would be crazy.
Attacks for poison damage isn't something I consider that good of a strategy. There are diminishing returns on toxin, and having a poison deadly enough to one-shot an entire herd of elephants doesn't help you that much more than a poison that would inflict pain and sickness debuffs onto a mid-sized carnivore. Both achieve the same purpose of discouraging attacks from
He
predator players.
min-maxed hard.
Now, if the Poison Dart Frog player base ever specs into Fangs and uses this toxin for Venom, maybe they'll break into the top tiers. Still, the fact that they can essentially one-shot anyone who attacks them is pretty impressive and earns them an above-average spot on the tier list. In A tier, we have the Bullfrog, which is essentially just your basic frog build, but with greatly
buffed.
improved stats. Your average frog is vulnerable to attacks from fish, birds, insects, and snakes. But with their added bulk and power, bullfrogs have solid matchups against all of these.
Bullfrogs are
and
scary.
Can even hold
They're
their own against
ginormous.
powerful predator builds like the house cat. Because of their favorable matchup spread, the bullfrog player base has started to take over pond.
Where's my useless desert rain frog? He's beautiful. He's round. He can do nothing. He's useless. Where's he?
Servers that they don't usually spawn in, which is the hallmark of a high tier build. Bullfrogs don't have any special defensive abilities or poison, relying solely on their bulk to carry them. But imagine if they did have poison in addition to their great stats. Well, that's essentially the cane toad build. The stats of a bullfrog combined with the thick skin and poison defense of a toad. The cane toad avoids making the same mistakes as the poison dart frog, investing only a moderate amount of evolution points into toxins, grants the cane toad a poison that's dangerous enough to thwart most predatory builds, without going overboard and wasting evolution points on an overly lethal elephant
like I
toxin
said.
that it doesn't need. The efficiency of this build allows it to easily take over and dominate the Australian meta. And in fact, the first video that I ever made on this channel was all about how broken they are. However, that was 3 years ago and the meta is shifting, with some intelligence builds learning the cane toad matchup and using this knowledge to minimize the potential poison damage by attacking only the toad's weak point and avoiding the poison glands. So I wouldn't be surprised if the cane toad started to drop down from S tier as intelligence builds expose more of the toad's flaws. But as flawed as they are, the frog build has come a long way. The amphibian faction as a whole has very humble beginnings, but the strategies that they pioneered, like swapping their fins for lead.
Frogs are kinda weak. Frogs are kinda weak, to be honest. Yeah, we're not going to watch them. It's only like the credits. We saw them so often now. Hermit crabs. It's 1 year ago. I think it's the earliest video that we got. We're going to watch this one, then the recent one, then we're going to stop for the end for this time. But yeah, there's like an American secret top tier animal. So let's watch the hermit crab one first. Okay. Yeah, frogs are kind of weak. I realized they can do basically nothing that some other amphibians cannot do. I don't know. The only thing that in my mind is a little bit impressive is like the poison dart frog, because he has just so strong poison and he looks very fancy. Are hermit crabs OP? This is loud, right? I'm sorry.
At first glance, beaches may seem like one of the most relaxed, casual biomes in the entirety of the game. But upon further analysis, it becomes clear that beaches are just as intense a battleground as every other biome. The fight for survival never stops, and so, of course, there have been a wide variety of strategies and builds that players have come up with to give themselves the best odds.
Beaches are scary.
The beach's lack of plant cover makes stealth strategies less effective, which in turn creates an essential need for other ways of avoiding attacks from predators, especially aerial predators. Crustaceans in particular are at a pretty big disadvantage,
What is
as they don't have the
Mudskipper
best
doing?
terrestrial movement speed, and don't fare very well in single combat against
Huh?
birds. However, there is one build that has developed a unique strategy to give itself better survival odds, the hermit crab.
I love hermit crabs. Hermit crabs are so cute.
So, crabs as a whole aren't all that powerful. In fact, because of their extremely low skill floor, they're a bit of a noob trap, which is why you see so many cases of players speccing their characters into the exact same set of abilities, without ever actually becoming a dominant meta threat. Still, crab-like builds do tend to have decent base stats, particularly in the realm of defense and power. So with that in mind, you might be surprised to learn that hermit crabs are well below the norm in both of
What?
these
They're
areas.
useless. They have
Compared to
intelligence.
similarly sized crustaceans, their crushing vice grip attack is nothing special, a little on the weak side in fact. And while most crustaceans have a tough, calcified exoskeleton that functions as sturdy armor against a variety of attacks, hermit crabs are one of the few crustacean builds with a very obvious, unarmored weak point that can be attacked for massive damage. However, as you might have guessed, simply looking at the hermit crab's base stats is a bit misleading. The hermit crab's signature ability, Armor Scavenge, more than makes up for this weakness, as it allows the hermit crab to significantly boost its stats to levels that would be otherwise unattainable.
That's so
The stat
crazy.
this ability's effects are most concentrated in is defense. While the hermit crab's defense stat is one of the lowest in the game when unequipped, as long as they've managed to secure a nice shell, their defense jumps to one of the highest in the game, essentially matching the stats of the shell's original owner. The most desirable shells are those of snails, though clam and scallop shells can also do the job.
Oh, he's long.
As long as the hermit crab has found a shell to equip, it can block most attacks with ease. Normally, defense stats this high would require extreme investment of evolution points,
That makes
and would
sense.
necessitate some serious min-maxing in order to be viable. However, the hermit crab is able to maintain pretty well-rounded stats through the use of this ability. It's not just defense that can be buffed via the Armor Scavenge ability though. The wide selection of patterns and coloration available among different shells means that a hermit crab can pick and choose what sorts of environments they would like to receive a stealth bonus in. Smooth, lightly colored shells will offer bonus camouflage on the beach, while the darker, more jagged shells will offer better camo in reefs.
Never realized how good hermit crabs are. What the heck? They're basically using tools. Now they only have to like evolutionize in something incredibly scary.
Swapping between shells isn't the only way hermit crabs can augment their stats to fit.
I heard, yeah, they are like trading. I saw like hermit crabs on the beach like trading their shell, because when they're like a bigger one finds like a bigger home, there's a smaller one who takes like the old one from the bigger one, and then they're trading all their shells. That's so crazy. It looks so funny. It looks like this, but I don't know. Normally they are a little bit less. I don't know why it's such a huge
The shells
amount of
themselves
them.
can be augmented to boost certain stats even further. One particularly advanced technique is equipping sea anemones to the surface of the
What? That's crazy.
shell, allowing the hermit crab to deal venom damage on contact.
Poison damage,
This is
yeah.
important because the hermit crab's basic attacks tend to be pretty mediocre on their own. This isn't universally true, as the coconut crab, a variation of the hermit crab build, packs one of the strongest crushing grips in the
The
entire
coconut
game.
crab is scary.
Strong enough, in fact, that coconut crabs actually drop the armor scavenge ability once they reach size big enough to rely solely on their claws for defense.
Coconut crabs are
However,
hermit
this is an
crabs?
exception, and also something coconut crabs only unlock at high levels. Before that, their gameplay
Okay, now just imagine in this world ginormous snails. Like bigger than like a big coconut crab. Then the coconut crab would be OP.
plan is identical to regular hermit crabs, meaning these absolute powerhouses still rely on the armor scavenge ability in order to maintain meta relevancy.
Look at his hand.
Upgrading the hermit crab stats with good shells and add-ons can make or break the viability of the hermit crab build. Unfortunately, securing a proper shell is becoming more and more difficult in the current meta. In part, this is due to the acidification of the ocean, which is a huge nerf to the viability of snails because it causes their shells to partially dissolve.
What?
And with less players spawning in as snails, this in turn means more competition for those shell drops. But on top of this, choosing a good shell is getting harder due to an influx of plastic garbage polluting all the best looting areas. Now, while hermit crabs are adaptable, and in some cases can even turn this into a win, plastic shells simply are inferior to the calcium shells dropped by defeated gastropods. But when the resource pool is constantly diluted with these low-quality drops, it's hard for builds with low intelligence, like the hermit crab, to consistently separate shell from trash.
Ew.
Ultimately, this is not a problem the hermit crab mains should be subjected to. And to be honest, compared to other beach-dwelling builds, hermit crabs have it pretty good. The abundance of garbage on beaches can be hugely damaging to less adaptable builds, and something needs to be done. This is why I joined TierZoos, an initiative started by some of the best creators on the internet. Our goal is to remove 30 million pounds of trash from the ocean.
But TierZoos is already
and to do that, we
finished.
need your help. It's quite simple, really. Each dollar donated equates to 1 pound of trash deleted from these biomes, which is quite a lot of trash when you think about it. I mean, that's like 50 water bottles. There's a link in the description of this video that you can click on to either donate or read more about the plan's specifics. But you can also just tap this fancy new donate button if you're trying to speedrun your conservation efforts. TierZoo will also be donating to the cause, so I hope you'll join me in giving hermit crabs as well as dozens of other beach-dwelling builds the buff they deserve. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, good luck out there.
Okay, let's look the last one for today. American Secret Top Animal. It's only a couple of days old. Is this full HD?
Cheetahs are low-tier trash. The fastest land build in the game has a ton of flaws in its game plan, which you could learn about in this video here if you like. But enough about cheetahs. What about the second fastest? Do you even know what it is?
Gazelles?
How does it stack up
No,
against
I don't know how
competition?
they're called.
I talk a lot on this channel about how overpowered the animals in the Africa server are. And while that's certainly true, the North America server also has its fair share of builds with ridiculously OP stats, including
Cow.
one little-known build with the second fastest run speed in the entire game.
What?
You might expect it to be a type of big cat, maybe a close relative of the cheetah, like the mountain lion, or perhaps a type of cervid, like a deer or elk. But no, it's actually the smallest member of the giraffe family, one
What?
that most players probably wouldn't expect to be related to the giant that we know and love, the American pronghorn.
What are you? I only know you from like...
The pronghorn may not look like much, but it sports some
Inscription.
pretty impressive stats, including the second highest base mobility stat of any terrestrial animal, with only the cheetah having a higher top speed. This makes it faster than every other build in the North America server by a substantial margin. Pumas, bears, and even wolves have essentially zero shot at closing the distance to a pronghorn player. Pronghorns have much more endurance than most predators, and are able to maintain these high speeds for significant distances, not just short sprints as most predators do. Pronghorns also have horns on their head which can deal decent damage in a pinch, although
What
it's
are
pretty rare that actually need to
pronghorns?
use them for anything other than dueling against each other. Still, these sharp, keratinized horns can definitely do some damage. Pronghorns aren't particularly stealthy because of their bright white back end. However, even with how
Right,
noticeable
but-
they are, if you ever see a pronghorn, it's almost certain it sees you first. Their eyes are incredibly sensitive and can detect movement from 4 miles away. Because of their huge field of view, this makes it borderline impossible to sneak up on a pronghorn unless your build has some
They have a
insanely
good
high-level
QV.
stealth abilities. Pronghorns have one of the lowest HP stats of any North American ungulate. They of course share a server with builds like the elk, moose, and buffalo, all with a massive health bar, making them near impossible to bring down solo. Conversely, pronghorns rely entirely on their speed stat to keep them safe, and can't really afford to take any damage at all. For the most part, the pronghorn's general game plan works great. Because they have the ruminant ability, their food is abundant, as they're able to digest grass, shrubs, and even cacti if necessary. They also are able to consume plants that are toxic to builds like sheep, cattle, and horses.
They just did the most basic vegetarian diet. How is it called? Carnivorous? No, carnivorous is like eating meat. Or herbivorous? Or I don't know. Herbivores. They are herbivores, I think. Or are those the things that eat everything? I don't know. But they're literally the most basic vegetarian in this entire planet.
Meaning they don't usually compete for resources with livestock, and so as long as they don't get careless, pronghorns are usually able to evade most conflict. So why is the pronghorn so uniquely fast? Its immense speed stat legitimately feels like overkill, and I would argue that in the current meta it absolutely is. However, the pronghorn has been one of North America's top survivalists for a long time. through several balance patches and expansions. And during the Younger Dryas expansion, there were additional, speedier threats that the Pronghorn player base had to contend with, namely the American Lion and American Cheetah. These Felid builds were extremely dangerous to a lightweight, evasive style build like the Pronghorn. The American Cheetah in particular had a max speed stat roughly equivalent to its African and Asian counterparts, but was also bigger and bulkier than the modern Cheetah. And so during that particular ranked season, the Pronghorn wisely opted to max out its speed and endurance in order to evade attacks from these
That's
American
crazy.
Felids.
He had to
However, these
evolve
Felids were
against
banned with the
stronger
launch of the Holocene balance patch, leaving the Pronghorn hugely
thingies.
overtuned for its remaining competition. Still, this didn't mean automatic success for the Pronghorn. In fact, their player count was dwindling up until very recently. The reason for this is that Pronghorns are extremely poor vertical jumpers, and so they're heavily impeded by any sort of barrier. They require open terrain with good visibility in order to remain competitively viable. So when human players started constructing barriers made of sharp metal, things got really dangerous really fast for the Pronghorn. Most of the herbivore builds in the North American meta can easily clear the vertical of an average barbed wire fence, but Pronghorn players usually opt to crawl under barriers
They
if
cannot
possible.
jump.
Because of the Pronghorn's low HP stat, even relatively mild chip damage from barbed wire fences can deal lethal damage to a Pronghorn. This issue was really frustrating to deal with as a Pronghorn main, and so most of them just opted to play characters with better vertical mobility. But eventually, the human player base realized how unfair this tech was, and opted to self-impose a ban on the tech in important areas. As a result, the Pronghorn player base has recovered massively and is no longer at risk of collapsing. So I don't know if I can quite give them an S-tier rank, since they're highly vulnerable to disruption if any sort of major balance patch imposes a lot of barriers into their territory, in addition to the obvious things like human structures, like roads and fences. Any increase in woodland biomes would also severely hamper their ability to detect predators or run for long distances to escape. This is the main reason why Pronghorns, despite still being faster than any of their potential competition, have failed to make an impact in biomes with less open spaces, such as the woodland tundra biome of the backcountry of Canada, or the jungles of Central America, where stealth-based builds like the Puma and Jaguar have more of an advantage. Now, to be fair, having an unfavorable matchup versus a Jaguar isn't saying much. They are the undisputed top-tier predator throughout the entirety of the Central and South American jungle biome.
Capybara, what
But
you
it
doing?
would be impressive to see them diversify their playstyle a bit to see if they could be more competitive in less open terrain, as their other giraffoid ancestors used to be. Especially since the Pronghorn's other main weakness is made worse by the fact that they spend time in completely open spaces. That weakness being their vulnerability to aerial attacks.
What?
With no tree cover, Pronghorns have nowhere to hide from the one predator that actually is able to keep up with them, the golden eagle. They may be
can
the second
die?
fastest land build in the
Poor
game,
eagle?
but if you include flying builds, most birds beat this speed pretty easily, especially predatory birds. Still, it's hard not to respect a build that managed to adapt so effectively that its strategy hard countered the game plan of their main opponents, driving them to complete and total irrelevancy. Then again, is it really that big a flex that a variant of the cheetah build ended up not being viable in the current meta? I wouldn't be that surprised if, given enough time, the African antelope mains also started speccing into higher speed or greater bulk in order to invalidate the African cheetah's only favorable matchup.
Anyways, with all that being said, I'm going to give the Pronghorn the rank of A tier.
Oh.
This video is brought to you by my next video on rhinos, already up on Nebula.
Oh, it's Nebula
Pronghorns
again.
are successful
It's the
despite
last
having some
sponsor
of the
for today.
smallest horns in the game. They're pretty much the polar opposite of the rhinoceros. I've mentioned the rhino in passing several times in recent videos, but I've never made an entire video dedicated to discussing their strategies, strengths, and weaknesses.
Oh no.
That is, until now. I've got an entire
Rhinos are
video
scary.
all about the rhino. It'll hit YouTube in a few months, but the full thing is already released on Nebula.
Ah.
Nebula is a streaming service owned and operated by and for creators like me, and thanks to their support, I can not only do these flashy edits, high-quality stock footage clips, and custom 3D animations, but I'm also now able to be one video ahead, 1 month in advance on Nebula. And it's not just me. Channels like Real Engineering and Extra Credits are also uploading their content 1 full video ahead. Not to mention high-quality exclusive originals like Real Life Lore's Modern Conflicts, which explores modern wars that couldn't possibly be captured with YouTube's restrictions. Or Real Science's Becoming Human, which uses gorgeous 3D animations to explore the evolution of the human build.
Best part is, with my link, you'll get a 40% discount on the annual plan,
40%
which comes down to as
discount.
little as $2.50 a month. So if you want to support me and
Ah.
every independent creator on Nebula, use the link down below to get the discount. Special thanks to all of my Nebula and Patreon subscribers, and thank you for
Patreon
watching.
subscribers. I love this. Wow. There's nothing better in this world than a lot of juicy TierZoos videos. That was great. I forgot how good they are. Wait a second, my voice, everything is very low on my side. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling so good. They did a great job. He did a great job. I don't know if there are many people, but it was nice. It was nice. The pronghorn. There was so pronghorn in my life. But animals are so interesting in every singular way. When you think about it, like the thing that he said, like in the end, sadly no suckers and buspis. Yeah, I think. When did this guy even die out, like the suckers and buspis? Hello, Rainy. Guten Morgen. Yeah, it's pretty early for me. Nice to meet you. I hope you had a great day, and if not, I hope it's getting so much better soon. Hello. Yeah, no suckers and buspis. I don't even know when was this guy even a thing. Like, when was the potato suckers and buspis even alive? We watched a couple of TierZoos videos a couple of minutes back, but we are going to stop now because I'm going to eat, get something to drink, and then we are already starting to do the next stream, finishing a little art thingy that we did. It's not going to be so long too because I have to go to an event later, but later. Very far into the day. I think it's 9:30 p.m. GMT plus 2. We are going to continue Sekiro. Yeah. It's possible that I'm going to be a little bit late, like 10-20 minutes, something like this, but it's not a bad thing. I think we only have to defeat like one boss. It's like the corrupted monk again. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, I love TierZoos videos. I want to do more reactions, but a little bit more interesting reactions. I don't like funny stuff. I really don't like comedy stuff and things like that. I like more of the educational thingies. I want to do it more on Mondays. Even art thingies, if you have something like this. Maybe we can do like, top 10 weirdest art TikToks that I saw. Something like that would be interesting too. Yeah, pretty funny. So, let's move to the end screen. Don't be sad, we are going to see us later, literally in 2 hours. That is crazy. Of course, you are sad, not me. You are sad. I can smell it. Okay. My stinky fishy. You are. It's okay today, I think. It's okay. Okay. My little fishy, we've done a lot today, we've done a lot yesterday, we are going to see us later or tomorrow. Thank you so much for stopping here, thank you so much for spending time with me, thank you so much for just being here. I hope you have a great day, and we are going to see us somewhere else, maybe. Remember rule number 1, take care of yourself. Bye. Wow. Big love, big love. Auf Wiedersehen. Wow. See us maybe in 2 hours.